and welcome back to the Cackling Jack podcast. Thank you again for listening to us so far with the Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. We are now going to jump into probably the most dramatically different of the three films, Army of Darkness. Made, I believe it was in 1992. Sam Raimi. This time they had Universal Studios as the distributor for this film, so they had a major studio backing them, and let's see how it turned out. Immediate thoughts on Army of Darkness. I know Lindsay, this is one you weren't able to get to, so I guess this will be us either trying to persuade you or dissuade you from seeing Army of Darkness.
Well, Mike and I talked about this before, earlier this week, about how it was like they tried to make it into a real kind of movie. Mm-hmm. You know, you said Universal's backing it, and it shows because they try and go whole hog with the special effects and, you know, the storyline and the time travel. And they're going back to, what was it, 1300 AD?
Yeah.
AD, who's he? And, you know, they really kind of, and he's the hero with, you know, the chosen one who's come back to try and save us from this evil, and they have the big armies fighting each other and all this stuff. And I feel like it just really lost what the original Evil Deads were all about. They're just disappointing, but at the same time, it's still a lot of fun because it's a cult classic, and, you know, we all have fond memories of it from our childhoods, but still it's like, oh, I don't know what happened to the whole series. It's not nearly as good.
Yeah. It's funny because I know people, I guess case in point, my brother-in-law, Jason, he was not at all a fan of the first two Evil Dead films, but when he saw Army of Darkness, it really resonated with him. So it could be just a case that the fact that they went in such a dramatic, different direction with this one, that maybe now that it isn't grounded in the horror and stuff, that there's other elements that people can gravitate to.
Right.
That's an interesting perspective from people who aren't, you know, like, you know, the folks in this group, and not only in being big horror fans and being big genre fans, but, you know, we all recently rewatched the other ones, and I personally watched them all very close together, one after the other. And as Sherry said, it is such a jarring change in tone and such a jarring change in look that, yeah, Mac, I guess that is important, is coming to it as its own film, it might actually look better than to someone who's coming at it as, you know, a sequel to Evil Dead 2, which, I don't know, almost couldn't be more different in tone, especially with the beginning. Because, like, as you said, it's a Universal picture. And I think I also saw De Laurentiis' studio in the credits.
Yes, he was responsible for the overseas distribution.
Right, okay. So this is very big Hollywood, old Hollywood, mainstream Hollywood production. And combining that with, you know, Sam Raimi and Campbell and their going to 15 wackitude and inappropriateness and disjointedness, it was very strange, because you open Army of Darkness, and again, it does the same thing that Evil Dead 2 did, where it starts right at the moment the last one ended, but then rewrites the last one anyway.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the second movie, you guys all remember, he gets thrown into the past. They cast the spell. They send the demons out of their time and into the past. And Bruce Ash gets sucked in with them. And he lands in the past. And then he has a bunch of knights come around him and declare him their savior. And he's going to be the big champion. And then the next movie opens. It's the exact same moment, except now the knights have him tied up and are leading him back to their castle to kill him because he's evil and a heretic or something. Mm-hmm. And so it's totally different, but completely the same. And then, but more than that, you can see, I think as Sherry said, it's even more jarring than a straight plot. It's shot so differently. It's shot almost like a Ten Commandments movie or one of these historical dramas. The shots are middle distance, they're straight, they're not skewed, they don't have weird perspectives.
There's no rabid squirrel flying through the woods.
There's no eyeball cam, there's no finger touching something cam.
There is briefly, but it's at the windmill. At the windmill, but that's as close to Evil Dead as Army of Darkness gets.
Right.
We'll get
running
to that.
Through the woods to the windmill. And then,
But I guess that's my point, is that the windmill scene, it's like I almost felt like something go chunk in my mind, like, boom. Now it's a different movie. That movie we just shot is over. Now it's kind of an Evil Dead movie again. But for the first act of the whole movie, he goes back. He's a prisoner. He fights his way out of the pit. He gets, appointed the savior who has to go quest for the Necronomicon. He waves his shotgun around and yells, "This is my boomstick." That scene is still great. All right, you primitive screwheads. And it's this kind of Connecticut Yankee chosen one. And it's really, if Bruce Campbell weren't acting like such a wacky tool, it would be so straight. It's like you're watching a sequel to Gladiator, not a sequel to The Evil Dead. And it just kind of came out of nowhere. And again, Bruce Campbell is the only thing kind of holding it together at the beginning, because he's, since the first movie, he's become this jaded, jerky, snarky, wisecracking, selfish, kind of beaten down asshole character. He started out as this nice guy, then he went crazy, then he became a badass when he chopped off his own hands and started fighting demons for fun. And now he's just gone into full entitled jerk mode, which is kind of understandable, but it forms kind of the only bond between the movies, is just Bruce Campbell overacting. Otherwise, again, it would be a straight up Hollywood chosen one in medieval times movie. And that is so weird to see after you've just seen the last one.
And a lot of that has to do with, first, there was a couple of factors. One is that when they were looking to make a third movie, immediately Campbell and Raimi said, "We are not going back to that cabin again. We are getting out of there. We are putting Ash someplace else."
And then you can get into this, but they set up, unlike the first movie, the second movie was they clearly had this in mind. They were setting it up the whole way. They had the papers from the version of the Necronomicon saying in the 1300s there was this chosen one, and there's this cute little picture of him with a chainsaw in like medieval manuscript mode. It's very nice. And, they obviously set it up so that this movie was going to happen. They knew it was going to happen, which, again, it's cool that they had this in mind. It's just surprising that they let it get this changed when they got themselves, a distributor and a budget.
And also, too, though, a lot of it was also Universal telling them that we want you to make a movie that's a sequel, but yet it needs to stand out on its own. So here you have this, they almost make almost a Monty Python and the Holy Grail mishmash to appease the studio heads. And then also just the title itself, Army of Darkness. Originally, it was going to be called Evil Dead 3, but then the deal says it has to be its own movie. And then they tried The Medieval Dead, which I actually liked as a title. I thought that would have been a good title.
That. Oh, my God.
And then they said, no, we can't have that. So then they decided, and of course it was Urban Shapiro who came up with Army of Darkness.
What a loss. The Medieval Dead. Oh, come on.
Then again, there was an Army of Darkness. You have to give them that.
Yep. A very Harryhausen Army of Darkness.
Yes.
Which we'll get to, because that was one of in the whole series, it's funny that this was the one with the budget, because my favorite screw-up moments for the effects in any of these movies was when the stop-motion Harryhausen skeleton army charges the castle, and they're fighting, and they break through the doors and charge into the castle, and then from one shot to the next, the Harryhausen skeletons suddenly become guys in cheap skeleton suits, and they're full-on big hairy suits wearing cloth costumes with little skeletons painted on, like you would do when you were trick-or-treating when you were 8 years old.
I didn't know that was intentional or not.
I don't either. I guess they just didn't, they wanted to do physical comedy and they didn't have the patience to Harryhausen it. I don't know.
Oh.
But that's kind of the whole movie, is just huge changes in tone. But this is also the one, Mac, you're talking about they wanted to make a movie that stood on its own. It's kind of funny that this contributed to kind of what people think The Evil Dead is. Yeah, maybe as much so, if not more, than Evil Dead 2, because this is the one where all the catchphrases come from. And this is the one where Ash, the charismatic jerk character, comes from.
Yeah, this is really where the con appearance persona that people now associate with Bruce Campbell, that bravado, this is where it really all started. What was it? It was It was like, yeah, this was right when Campbell was doing the convention circuit, and now people were kind of asking him, "Hey, can you recite this line? Can you recite that line?" And sort of Campbell brought that bravado from the Ash character into real life to make him and Ash pretty much one and the same.
Yeah, which we can get into, but that's kind of been his career ever since. Like, he was doing other B movies at the time, but yeah, this is kind of where that character really came together. And this is also where he gets a backstory. That's the other retcon in this, is that's where he gets the backstory, where he's just the schlub who's working at, not Walmart, S-Mart. Shop Smart, Shop S-Mart, that's correct. And, he's just kind of this guy who's, I don't even know if he's too smart for his job. He just thinks he is, because he's kind of a doofus too. That's kind of the joke.
Sam Raimi's described Ash as basically being a complete moron until the monsters arrive, and then Ash takes charge and kicks ass.
Right. He's good at one thing. He's terrible at everything else.
Yeah.
He's terrible at life. He's terrible with women. He's terrible at remembering things. He's terrible at doing almost anything except beating up monsters. And that gives him the confidence to go out and pretend that he's great at everything else. Or at least think he is.
And Army of Darkness, I guess, really kind of continues that third movie syndrome where people do not adopt it immediately. It takes some time before people really started liking Army of Darkness. I mean, you look at Return of the Jedi when that first came out. A lot of people were disappointed by it, which...
I don't know how.
And then you also have Halloween 3, which I actually really like, despite the fact that it doesn't have Michael Myers. And, of course, Godfather 3, that movie still sucks.
Yeah.
Well, but again, I don't think it's bad. It's just kind of a disappointing change in tone, because they had gotten so... Because, I mean, to go into it, okay, so Ash arrives, he goes through the little heroes thing, he becomes the hero. The wizard tells him to go on a quest for the Necronomicon in this time so that they can get it, so that they can banish the undead and send him home. And he bumbles around and screws it up. But when he goes on this quest, again, like we said, that's when everything changes, is he rides through the woods, and he goes to a windmill. And Sherry, would you like to try to describe what happens when he just walks into a random windmill all of a sudden?
He walks into this windmill that's apparently filled with miniature versions of him. That it's like the land of Bruce Campbell Lilliput. And they all surround him and attack him. And it is very much, now that I know that he's a fan of Three Stooges, there's so many references to Three Stooges kind of slapstick comedy. And I just remember watching the scene going, okay, I guess I can go with this. It was actually probably my favorite part of the movie in the end. It was really hysterical. And it's like he went on this special acid trip while he was in the woods.
He went down the rabbit hole.
Really?
Yeah,
way down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, maybe it's because the whole thing was so childish, but it kind of reminded me of being a kid and watching Dumbo. You remember the old Disney movie Dumbo?
Yes, it's like Elephants on Parade.
Yeah.
God, Elephants on Parade. Yes. Now you've got my attention.
Yeah. He's on a medieval quest, and he just stops for the night, and all of a sudden, well, there's a bunch of references, because, there's always been mirrors in the series. There's always been Ash looking into the mirror in a cabin, and then some other version of him comes out, or he appears as a zombie. Mirrors are always fucking with Ash.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he goes in, and there's a mirror, and this time it's actually pretty funny, because he shatters it, because he's like, fuck mirrors, I'm not going to let this one get me. He's sick of mirrors, so he shatters it, and all of a sudden, out of each of the pieces of the shattered mirror, a tiny little evil Ash clone comes out, and they all start, like you said, doing Gulliver's Travel stuff to him, stabbing him with a fork and tying him down and poking him in the eye and doing all this wacky stuff to him. And then he starts, like, brutally murdering all of them.
Yeah. He does a full giant feet-by-foot thumb thing and tries to step on him. Of course, the one uses a rusted nail when he tries to step on him, and instead the nail goes up through his shoe. But it's just like, the one that I was just like, what is happening is when he swallows it. He swallows one of the
very
mini-me's.
David Cronenberg body horror movement of it growing inside of him.
Yeah,
and he splits apart.
Now in different movie stars.
Yes. And splits apart.
45 minutes in the movie, we finally get our antagonist with Evil Ash.
Yes.
Evil Ash.
And that's really my favorite section of the movie. I hate to be a spoiler here, but that's where it transitions, as Max said, from he eats one of the little evil clones, and then he grows an eye in his shoulder. And then through a series of really hilarious cuts, he runs screaming into the night, and every time the camera comes back to him, there's more of a clone of him growing out of him until there's like torso Ash running around, howling at the moon. Having he's poking himself in the eye, he's punching his other head with his other arm. It's a great sequence. It's hilarious. It's twisted and sick. It's like for me, the most Evil Dead movie in the whole thing. And then they separate, and then Mac, do you want to take it from there once other Ash grows out of him?
And then we have basically the Evil Ash ragging on Good Ash, and then Good Ash just puts a double-barrel shotgun to Evil Ash's face and blasts him away. And we get probably one of my favorite Ash lines, good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun.
Exactly.
Which, yeah, I guess, and I think that's probably the moment that the character, achieved his final form right there. Like, I'd say that's it, where the evil clone comes out and he's being wacky and evil and he's punching him and he's mocking him. He's like, you're a little goody two-shoes, I'm the evil Ash. And then Ash just whips out the gun, blows him away. It's very Looney Tunes. His face gets blackened like it's Wile E. Coyote, and there's no other damage. He goes spiraling through the air, and then they zoom in on Bruce Campbell, and he's like, good, bad, I'm the guy with the gun. And
it's a very Indiana Jones reference, too.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the fastest way to end the fight? Shoot him in the face.
Right, enough with this.
Exactly. And it's very Indiana Jones character style. I mean, that's the closest thing I can think of, because there's no real white or black goodness to him, goodness or evil. He's just him.
Mm-hmm.
He's, and that's the scene that I mean, it makes that clear. Even with all the bravado and whatnot, he is not wholly good. He's not wholly evil. He's just a guy trying to survive and do what he can. With boomstick.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of where, like, if you're playing one of these games where you have to choose your alignment or choose whether you're good or evil.
Oh, I hate those.
Right. Ash's alignment is badass. That's it. Although that does come with, I think we mentioned, and Sherry, you especially mentioned earlier in the series, this whole series has problems with women and doesn't use its women characters very well. Mm. Yeah, and that's kind of been all the thing that kind of itches me the wrong way, at least when I watch these again. You can accept that he's a jerk. You can accept that he's a bumbling idiot who also happens to be a badass at fighting monsters. And you can, and you love the fact that he's arrogant and he's throwing off these one-liners, but then he's always getting his ass kicked and he's always getting fooled and always getting thrown around. So it's funny because he's getting brought down a peg, but he keeps bringing himself up and thinking the most of himself. That's comedy. Yeah. But the whole part where he, basically
the character of Sheila.
Yeah, that didn't go down as well these days as it maybe was intended to at the time, and I think that's again another big weakness.
Yeah, I wasn't too happy with what they did to poor Sheila.
Yeah, because she's supposed to be, the love interest, which is shallow enough. But basically, she tries to help him. He insults her. Then when she finally tells him to piss off and leave, he just kind of grabs her and then, kind of date rapes her. What's his line? He's like, "Give me some sugar, baby," and then he just kisses her, and she kisses
at him. And then, the leader of the Army of Darkness does the same thing.
Yeah, Evil Ash, Good Ash and Evil Ash do the same thing. That's maybe too much of what I just talked about. And she gets molested, and then she gets turned into a demon, and then it's his fault too, because Ash screwed up the whole thing. He screws up the quest by messing.
He didn't have the patience to listen to the magician. Now repeat the words. I know the words. Oh, you jerk! You don't know the words.
Yeah, and Mac, of course, that's another one of the big references in this whole series.
Oh yeah, Day the Earth Stood Still.
Yeah, Klaatu Verada Nikto. Or as Ash Williams says it,
Nectar.
Definitely an N-word. Latu, Verada. And that's what raises the Army of Darkness. That's pretty funny. But then, she gets kidnapped. So it's his damn fault that she gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And he's already abused her and messed with her and lied to her. And then she gets kidnapped. And then she gets molested by his evil clone. So she's now been molested by Ash twice. And now she gets turned into a demon. And then when she reappears at the final battle as a demon, he doesn't even try to save her. He's just like,
Honey,
you're
you
an
got
ugly
real
bitch,
ugly.
and punches her. Yeah, it's the same things. Like every time a woman gets possessed, they just can't call her bitch enough or punch her enough. And it's just, yeah, I can only imagine this actually being female and watching this. And
yeah, it's grating.
yeah.
It's grating, to say the least.
Again, if they were going to do a remake, that would have been the first thing to, to bump up a notch and to change. Because it was my idea. How cool would it have been if Sheila was the wizard?
Been awesome.
Yeah, because they got this wizard character who's just there to be, the wizard character and expound and give Ash a quest. What if she were like the priestess or the wizard, and they, she gave him the quest and he screwed it up, and they had this contentious relationship, and that was her character. And then she had to try to figure out how to right what he screwed up, and then he had to try to figure out how to redeem himself in her eyes, and they had this big fight about it. And she got to do some of the slapstick. She got to cast some spells and blow up skeletons, and she got to get smacked and fall downstairs and then levitate and throw lightning bolts,
See, now you're just suggesting crazy things. That's just nuts. Why would we want to do that?
Take the
Especially
woman
in the 90s. Yeah.
Take the woman object and make her a character. I don't know.
Nah. They still don't do that, so I don't know why they would have done that then.
Yeah.
And it's not like the actress playing Sheila wasn't void of talent. I mean, the movie she immediately followed up with after Army of Darkness was Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, so Spielberg's a fan.
Yeah. Everybody's a fan. But this whole movie in the third act, it's this big battle. And that's kind of where the movie started to win me back, because I think I made notes and I wrote, 1 second, why is Ash teaching the medieval people medieval fighting?
Ah, oh, hi, yeah.
it wasn't even medieval fighting. That was like what he saw in a kung fu movie once.
But then the next note under that is skeletons with bagpipes. All is forgiven.
Yes, where are they getting the wind to blow these bagpipes? That was my question. Like, they don't have lungs.
Yeah.
How are they blowing the bagpipes?
It's the same logic as why a disembodied head can talk in Reanimator, even though it has no lungs. It's no reason.
Yeah, no reason.
Yeah.
No reason.
And then below that, I'm like, as we talked about before, the skeletons are now guys in stupid costumes. And then just below that, Pontiac Battle Wagon. All is forgiven.
Yes.
No, it's a 73 Oldsmobile. It's a difference.
Oh, I'm
Get
so
your
sorry.
cars right.
The Delta 8873 Oldsmobile.
Right. And Sherry, do you want to take a crack at describing what they do with the 73 Oldsmobile and what the hell it's doing there in the first place? Because I've kind of forgotten the sequence of events.
Oh my gosh. The car gets swept back with him into the time portal. And
This
lands
car he always drove at the cabin, right?
Yes.
This is always the car, the yellow car, the yellow
course.
Oldsmobile that he drives. And although in the first movie he's not driving it, the Scotty guy is driving it. He's never behind the wheel until he tries to drive Shelley out of the forest, but that's digressing. The car and Ash get dumped into the middle of the 1300s, and the soldiers who find him take the car somehow and drag it back with them, because after they try and poke it with their spears, they realize this thing is a cool piece of armor. And then Ash and the blacksmith, somehow Ash has textbooks in the back of the car that teach him how
chemistry
to
textbooks. Yeah,
chemistry and
physics.
steam engine and physics. And he learns and he figures out, first he makes gunpowder, and that creates explosive arrows. And then he converts the car into this armored, steam-powered death mobile.
The Death
Yeah.
Coaster. They call it the Death Coaster. Yep.
Yes, and it's got spikes on it, and it's got, what the heck is the thing on the front that swings around? I'm blanking. The propeller,
Yeah.
Yes, and he's cutting through the army of darkness with this propeller.
And it's going. It has a steam engine strapped to its regular engine, so it's going toot toot like a train engine.
Yeah, that's the best part.
As it saw blades through skeletons, it's wonderful.
And again, it's like something that he once saw. Yeah, it's something like he once saw in a cartoon, was the steam engine with the toot toot thing. Whereas, most steam engines really don't work that way. I don't know what he was doing. So he basically took all of his fighting stuff and all of his techniques and plans from old TV and cartoons he used to watch. That's what I think. The character, Ash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was his whole concept for developing a battle plan. It's like, that's really not a great kind of basis for any kind of battle plan. So that's what he does with the Oldsmobile.
But it's like someone made Braveheart into a Looney Tune with zombies, so it works.
Yeah.
And then I forget, how did they banish or defeat the evil in this one? Because the evil's coming at them because Ash took the book and he screwed up the magic. So they got summoned and they came back to take the Book of the Dead. And they're protecting the Book of the Dead, and he's going through the battle wagon, and then he and Evil Ash have a slapstick duel, and it's funny. And he explodes. But I forget, what did they actually do to make the Deadites? Oh, this is the movie where they came up with the word Deadites.
Deadites, yeah.
Wasn't in the series to this. That was what the medieval guys called the Army of the Dead from the book. So that's this, again, what people think of as Evil Dead just keeps coming in later, and then retroactively applying to what came before.
Yeah.
How did they stop it? I was confused about that.
I think it's kind of like the whole Dracula thing, where if you kill the original vampire, it reverses everything. That's kind of what I got out of it. And then later on, they use the correct spell to get rid of the evil.
Right.
It's very nice, squeaky clean way of taking care of everything.
Right. And so then, kind of in an inadvertent setup, Ash drops back to his own time, and he arrives back at his job in Walmart. And then, of course, starts using his story about going back in time and fighting evil to try to get laid.
Yeah, Did you say the words correctly this time?
Not exactly correctly.
Maybe I didn't say every single tiny little syllable, but basically I said the words.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah, and then it all ends on this note that kind of, I thought, was trying to bring all these chaotic movies together, because it ends with this battle for no reason. No reason.
Yeah.
A zombie or demon shows up in modern times in Walmart and starts fighting Ash just for the hell of it. And they fight around the Walmart.
Old lady body.
Yeah, and he does badass things with the rifle that he found behind the counter at Walmart. And he's, that's where you get hail to the king, baby. I'm the king in my own time. And it's this kind of like, he's the character from Army of Darkness. He's big, cocky, Ash that everyone will remember. But the scene is shot darkly, like it's the first movie, and the monster looks terrifying and is total serious business. And yet they're doing things like bouncing her off trampolines in the toy section.
Yeah.
Ash is riding on a shopping cart and flipping a rifle around. So it's like the second movie. And it's a cool ending. It makes no sense. And it seems to be trying to actually kind of make some identity out of these three completely different movies.
Now, how many of you have seen the international ending?
I have not.
Do not know what that is.
Okay.
Ending?
This is what was shown in the foreign distribution. The ending you guys saw was made specifically for the American theaters.
That explains it.
The way the movie ended in other countries, the part where Ash has to drink a serum to go back to his own time, he takes one drop too many and sleeps through the apocalypse and wakes up after the world has been destroyed.
Dude!
Yes.
That's cool.
That would have been so much better.
Yeah, and they say that's the one that's more appropriate for the character of Ash, but I can see why they went with the ending that they did in America, just because it's something they probably wanted to continue. But I do like the international ending
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Wait, is this clip on the internet?
Yes,
No, because I've seen this reference and I never knew it was the "I slept too long" scene.
yes, that's exactly it.
Dude, you have just cleared up so much confusion for me. I never knew what the hell that was.
Nope, yeah, that was the international ending.
Mm-hmm. God. So even the alternate endings for this series have become memes. That's how memeable this series is. God. And yeah, before we go, I had one more note that I forgot. It's technically from the second movie, but it kind of sums it up with, all the Three Stooges-ness and the Lovecraft references and the Craven references and the fact that Evil Dead is kind of this nexus for other movies at the same time as going on to inspire ones in the future. There's a scene, I'm changing it, by the way. My new favorite scene in the second movie is the one, remember where the ghost of the dead archaeologist from the first one comes in?
Yeah, he sounds like something out of like an old haunted house record. I love that part.
And his face, if that's not modeled on the face from The Exorcist, it is. It's the same face. It's the Exorcist face. He makes the haunted house noises. He rattles at them, and then they pan to the side, and what's the archaeologist's daughter is standing there, and she tells Bruce Campbell, "You're holding my hand too tightly."
No, it's the redneck couple that say that.
There we go. Yeah, okay. Yeah. She tells her husband, "You're holding my hand too tightly," and he's like, "I'm not holding your hand." And then it's the disembodied hand from 10 scenes ago, and until it's the disembodied wacky hand that starts gouging eyes, that is a beat-for-beat, line-for-line redo of a famous scene from The Haunting. The original one.
The original Haunting.
Who was holding my hand? It was a ghost. In this one, it's a wacky disembodied hand that then starts poking eyes. And that's kind of the whole series in a nutshell. It's just this kind of ball of crazy ideas that's both original and so full of references you can't even comprehend it.
Okay, so I think we're ready to wrap up Army of Darkness. We'll go ahead and run through everybody's favorite scenes. Sherry, would you like to go first?
Oh, it's the windmill scene.
All right.
Absolutely. I think that was pretty clear. It's the windmill.
Who hasn't wanted to stab a tiny version of themselves with a fork? Mac, what would yours be?
Gosh. Mine, I would have to say the fight in the pit. I really, really like that scene. Yeah. The fight in the pit is my favorite scene.
Why didn't he just grab onto the chain in the first place and haul himself out?
No reason.
Yeah,
I was so irritated by that. I couldn't. I was like, just grab the chain.
And just the scene of him jumping in midair and reconnecting with the chainsaw is just such a sweet, sweet spot.
That's where I thought of Excalibur. That's when Excalibur came to mind. I was just like, it's the Lady of the Lake, Excalibur. He's lunging for it. Oh, yeah.
And the actor playing the old man, that was Mr. Pitt from Seinfeld.
Oh, God. I think mine, for some reason, it's just the one that stuck with me, and this is one we didn't talk about, was just before he goes on the quest. He goes, as we said, to the old blacksmith with whom he'll later use middle school textbooks to make a battle car. Mm-hmm. And because he lost his hand in the second movie, they actually...
The hand, yeah.
Yeah, they repeat the workshop scene from the other movies, except it's a medieval smithy. And they just show them whacking with, like, iron hammers on an old-school anvil and working a bellows. And then all of a sudden, Bruce Campbell has a robot hand.
Yes.
And he has a robot hand. And then he just makes a fist with it and yells, "Groovy."
He crushes a goblet. That's what he does.
Yes.
He crushes a goblet, and they all look like, whoa, and he goes, "Groovy."
Yeah. It's just, it's hilarious. And it's just this perfect combination of makes no damn sense, but you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part.